Hello and welcome to Tabletop Oddity. My name is Jay and today I'm going to be talking about two things. Number one is the variety in Star Wars Legion is so much better now and I just want to talk about that. And number two, I want you to send me your lists with the specialists in them for a list review series. Hopefully we can garner enough interest in that. It should be an interesting video series. What I'll do is I'll say, I'll pick a subject, you'll send me your list with that in, I'll go through them and we'll talk about them. And I think the specialist on either the Imperial or the Rebel side is a great place to start because there's quite a few different things in it and we should get quite a lot of variety that way. So do send me your list. If you are going to send me your list, Tabletop Admiral, there'll be a link in the description below. So on with the video. Basically, I want to talk about how the list variety now is so much better. And I think I've mentioned this before, but it's something I think that's actually worth its own video because Star Wars Legion, when it came out, had two factions. We knew that was going to be the case. And it didn't have that many options, right? There's no alternative to that. It honestly really didn't. And I was watching a video from Blackjack Legacy and he's talking about games that you maybe want to revisit. He mentioned Star Wars Legion, how, the variety is better now, that we already had vehicles, but we're getting some more vehicles. And honestly, I think the way that each faction plays is quite different. And you can make quite different playstyles within each faction. The game now is so much more varied that I think he's right. It is definitely worth taking a second look. It would be nice when we get other factions that will have even more play styles with different aesthetic, different looks, people's personalities and stuff like that will be able to show through. But right now, we've had a lot of releases that were that initially sort of seemed similar, perhaps, but in reality have given the game a lot of flavour. So what did we have at the start? We had the AT-ST, the standard troopers, speeder bikes, that kind of thing. And then what did we get? We got fleet troopers and the snow troopers. Now the snow troopers and the fleet troopers, when they came out, I was a bit meh, the other ones are probably a bit better. But the more that the game has developed, the more that you can see a sort of trend in the gameplay from in style. So you can either go close quarters combat, and that's either short range flamers with the snow troopers, or the fleets moving into range 2 and blasting people with the white dice, the characters that enable that, or there's other things I'm going to have a gun line, maybe I'm going to take 60 LTs with snipers and Vias, that's all perfectly reasonable. Or you can do an armor skew, you can run either 3 AT-RTs. I was going to say 2 AT-STs is doable, but not quite as doable as the AT-RT list. There's lots of play styles now. Now we're getting the Royal Guard and the Wookiees. You can even have a decent melee, but aggro kind of list that's going to push up and run into you. The characters that we've had, you can take Chewie if you want to be able to guardian hits and protect a unit. You've got Palp, that's a utility character that the Imperials didn't have. You've got Vias, who is again a support character who's pumping out aims. You've got Boba Fett, who's a bounty hunter collecting bounties off people. Han Solo, his little reckless diversions and all that kind of stuff. Really, I think you can pick a style that you like and play to it, and that really is something we didn't have at the start. A lot of the games were a lot of the games were Luke and Leia, because they were the most powerful thing at the time against probably either Vias and Shooty, or if you were a bold man, you'd take Vader and try and maybe move up the board, and if you got there, you would win. And that was probably, they were the competitive list, really. But we've seen it, I think it's now quite varied. People can take, snow troopers with recon intel, frag grenades, and a flamer, and just move them up and blast you like that. You've got funky names, we got I like spicy chicken combo, which is basically 3 walkers with the flamer, which some people call Sorry About the Barbecue. Again, a decent list, but that's if you're running Han and you'd run in Sorry About the Mess. I'm not really making a lot of sense here, I don't think, but just things like the commandos and the scouts. Initially, I'm all like, not really sure how they're going to get used. It's probably just going to be the snipers. But then at the tournament I went to, I took the saboteurs for the scouts, and I was very impressed by them. In an event that we're online that we're doing at the weekend, I'm running full units of commandos with a sniper in them for the rebels. The variety is very strong in terms of playstyle. I think that's what I'm trying to say right now. But what is still lacking, I think, is the variety in terms of aesthetic. Yes, you know, we have Royal Guard and we have Wookiees and stuff like that. And yes, we're going to get the Pathfinders and the Death Troopers. But really, they're sort of, it's essentially a scouty commandery kind of unit for the rebels and a heavier stormtrooper, different coloured stormtrooper unit. Near enough. And aesthetic wise, I can see why if you don't like either of those two looks, you might be like, oh, I'm not that interested. But the Clone Wars coming along, when you are going to really sort of dramatically, well, not dramatically change that, but you're going to have droids and you're going to have the Clone Trooper faction, which is essentially, and Jedis and all that kind of stuff. Enough variety there. I think you might end up seeing an actual unit of what species is Jar Jar Binks? I can't remember off the top of my head, but you might end up seeing those kind of guys. And I think once we get to the full faction point, you're going to have varied playstyles, varied list building opportunities, and a varied aesthetic. And once you have that, you really have people being able to come in and just enjoy the experience from any point of view. Whereas right now, if you're not really into Star Wars, like the original trilogy, there might not be much for you, but maybe you really like an idea of a droid army, and maybe it's going to give you conversion options or something like that. It's really going to push the game forward, I believe. But it's hard to explain, but each release has really greatly benefited the game. So what did we get first? Han really allowed a scoundrelly kind of play style. Every character is very thematic in my opinion. It all seems fairly characterful, and I really like that, and Han was a great start to that. Boba Fett really changed the playstyle available to the Imperials with that fast movement, ignoring cover, precise. You got a flamethrower with Boba Fett if you wanted it, and really allowed a utility belt of a character, really mixed things up that the Imperials didn't have. And the Rebel Han, obviously, his roguish nature sort of suited it. And then what else did we get? We got Palpatine. Palpatine for the Imperials, as I said, really, instead of being like a utility support, he's like a Swiss Army knife, I guess is what I'm trying to say. He's got many different offensive possibilities. Being able to pull the strings on the Royal Guard and charge them in from maybe range 3 can be quite strong. But it also can be quite utility in the sense that maybe you want to pick up a box and run away. Palpatine really drastically changed that. And Chewie, you've got to have Chewie, haven't you? I do apologize, just hit the mic. But Chewie, obviously, he's the very flavorful, very tanky character, and just really opened up the options even for the Rebels. So what I'm trying to say is that the game now is quite varied. And the options are quite varied. And because they're happy to go, say, Wookiees and Royal Guard, even the models are actually looking quite different in some cases. I don't necessarily think the next unit are all that different. I mean, they are obviously different models, but the theme is sort of the same kind of theme as what we already have. It's better stormtroopers and better commandos. So in that sense, okay. And then what we're going to get even more. We're going to get the vehicles, more vehicles than what we've already had. Probably ones that are actually going to see meta play because they're looking pretty decent. They've got quite a few usage. And then we've got the droids and the specialists. So, maybe you want to play a Healy vehicle repair unit list. So you with your AT-ATs, crack on. Maybe you want to play, I'm going to charge him Palp and heal him up and just keep him alive. Crack on. It's all possible. And the variety and the options is so much varied now that I definitely agree with Andy that if it's a game that you were thinking about playing but you weren't happy with the variety in the playstyles and the armies, then have another look. There's enough out there. Now, obviously, it's not Games Workshop, it's not 40k, there isn't a billion factions, or 16 or whatever there actually is. The world is the world that it is, and whilst it can expand to a certain point, it's never going to have, you know, Tyranids. It might have creatures that are like that in one unit, but it's not actually going to be the same kind of thing. We're not going to see orcs for sure. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So there's limits to the variety, but in playstyle wise, I think it is so much better now. And I just wanted to expel the virtue of that. And to say, and really this is the main, personally this is the main thing I wanted to do, is send me your specialist list so that I can do a review series. I'll go through the list. Tabletop Admiral is the site. I'll put a link in the description below. Really get on the post your list, and then I'll come on in maybe a week's time and we'll just go through them, and I'll talk about how they're going to play, if they're any good, maybe what else I would do differently. Sort of, you're familiar with Hurry Nick, he does something similar but with X-Wing. I sort of want to do that but for Legion. I'm not sure we'll get enough lists. If we don't get enough lists, I'll just make some myself and talk about them, and we'll do that. But yeah, so those 2 points really. I'm really happy with the variety of Legion these days, and secondly, I think it'll be a good idea, it'll be a good series if you send me your specialist list. And then once at the end of the specialist list, I'll say, oh, next week we're going to do layer lists or whatever. Well, not layer, but you know what I mean. End of the video. That is the end of the video. If you like this video, do like. It's a bit of a weird one. It's just me talking about how good Star Wars Legion is. If you're not already subscribed, though, definitely do that. And thank you to my Patreons. That really does mean a lot to me right now. And, well, forever, but just right now, because that's what I'm only living in the now. But thank you to you guys. Thank you for watching. Have a most beautiful day, and goodbye.